What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Deity explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Hello and welcome to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie, where we believe in experience becomes truth. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and joining me now in studio is the world-renowned psychic, Eddie Connor.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everybody. Freemasonry and their rituals go back for centuries, and our guest today is here to discuss how one particular ritual connects all the way back to the infamous Kensington Runestone.
Our friend and world-renowned forensic geologist, Scott Wolter, is here today. And the last time we had him on, there wasn't enough time, so we decided it was time to continue this conversation.
That's right. And while working as a forensic geologist, Scott was fascinated with the Kensington Runestone, which he believes, Tony, is an authentic pre-Columbian land claim carved here in America by none other than the Knights Templar.
This is one area that we're discussing, and who knows what direction this conversation will go. So sit back and enjoy the ride.
Please put your hands together and welcome world-renowned forensic geologist Scott Wolter.
Welcome back, Scott.
Wow, what a great group you have there. That's amazing.
Well, when they heard you were showing up, then everybody was like, I have to be there. So
they came out. All right.
They all brought their tablets. They want you to sign them with a chisel and a hammer.
I love it.
Well, thank you for doing this. This is going to be fun. I know the last time, like I said in the intro, we didn't have enough time to just chit-chat and talk about all the stuff that you've experienced through your career. And for one thing, I want to start by you. I know recently about a year ago or so that you joined the Freemasons, and
right.
And tell us about one reason why you joined the Freemasons in the first place,
and the biggest misconception about them.
Well, I guess I have to go back and talk about how I initially came in contact with them. Was when I was doing this research on the Runestone. Excuse me one sec. Are you guys getting that feedback, or is that just me?
I'm not hearing any feedback, but
no, me either.
Okay, well then I'll just power through it. It's on my phone. But anyway, so as I was researching the Runestone, I went over to Sweden 4 or 5 times in the period of about 2.5 years. It led to the Cistercians, it led to the Templars, and ultimately it led to the Freemasons. And I reached out to them in a casual way, and I have to say they completely embraced me. And, I made it very clear that I'm not, trying to do anything to out you guys or anything nefarious. I'm trying to figure out the mystery of the stone, who carved it, where they came from, and why. And they were like, hey, that's fine. And so they basically opened up their archives to me. They were completely helpful. I can't say enough about, how well they treated me. And as I began to look in their archives and get to know these people and try to understand what Freemasonry was about, all I saw were things that resonated with me. The philosophy was consistent with my belief system. They don't judge people. You can be any religion. All they ask you to do is make a statement about a belief in a higher power. They don't care if it's Allah, if it's Jesus, if it's God, if it's the Creator, if you're a Native American. They don't care. And when you are in a Masonic lodge, you have all the holy books on the altar. Anyone of any faith that is in a lodge, their holy book will be there. And I like that. I like the idea of tolerance. I think more than anything, the word that really struck with me was tolerance. They were tolerant of people's ideology, their beliefs, and they didn't judge. The only thing that they frown upon when you're in lodge is they don't encourage people to talk about religion or politics. And the philosophy is we want to talk about things that unite us, not divide us.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Wow.
Who's got a problem with that?
I was going to say that sounds like a perfect world to me.
Yeah, there's two groups of people on this planet that have a problem with that. One's religious people, and the other one are politicians.
Right.
That's right.
Oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
Right.
There's three. Then there are the politicians who are super religious. Sorry.
Well, it really made sense to me. And, again, I felt it was important to study these people. And the more I studied, the more I found things that were compatible with my beliefs. And, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, and it's funny, just last week, Janet and I drove out to South Dakota, where I was invited to MC a really important Masonic event. It was the 75th anniversary of the construction of Mount Rushmore. And it was great. There was 1,500 people there. It was packed, and it was really a wonderful event. And it was a celebration of our country. It was a celebration of Freemasonry. And they asked me to give a speech that morning, so I had to just make it up on the spot.
Wow.
But one of the things I said was this. I said, you look at these four great men behind me. We know three of them at least were Freemasons, Thomas Jefferson being raised in France based on the evidence that we've seen. He wasn't raised in this country, so a lot of people think he wasn't a Freemason. George Washington, of course, was, and Teddy Roosevelt. But Abraham Lincoln was going to become a Mason. Unfortunately, he was assassinated before he could go through and become one. But what I said to the people was, here are these four great men who have been lionized, not just in our country, but around the world, as these great men, as these founding fathers. Mm-hmm. And they were Freemasons. And the question I asked is, I said, does the fact that these people were Freemasons have anything to do with their greatness? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. So thinking about that, and as I was, doing these shows with America on Earth and Pirate Treasure, I was always concerned that I didn't want people to think that I was biased, that I had an axe to grind for anybody. I'm neutral. I look at the evidence and I make the call depending on what the evidence is consistent with. And I didn't want anyone to think that I was shilling for the Masons. And then after, we stopped doing the shows, or we were getting ready to stop doing the shows, I started to think about it, and I go, you know what? The people that support me, do they care if I'm a Freemason? No. And the people that don't support me, that don't like what I'm doing, do I care what they think? No. And I said, to hell with it. Let's do it. And to be quite frank with you, in my opinion, I think the world needs more Masons, especially in government, because based on the principles that we are taught to embrace, I can tell you with 100% certainty, if we had more Masons in government, we would have a better chance of people making decisions in the interest of the greater good instead of the personal good. And I don't know about you, but I think we need more of that. We got plenty of the latter.
Right, that's for sure. And didn't you join a certain specific sect of the Freemasons?
Well, I joined a local lodge in Minnesota. I'm a member of Wyzetta 205. Call me biased, but they're one of the, if not the best Gold Star lodges in Minnesota, and I would argue the country. They do great ritual work. We have a lot of wonderful brothers there, and they do a great job. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and it was confusing to me for a long time, but when you become a master Mason, you go through the first three degrees: the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and then you become a Master Mason. And you're good. I mean, you are on the squad. You are a fully vested Mason. And if you don't want to do any more, you're fine. However, if you want to seek additional light, as we like to say, additional knowledge, you can go through an additional 29 degrees with the Scottish Rite, or you can go through the York Rite, which is an additional 10 degrees for a total of 13. York Rite, which is similar to the Scottish Rite, but it's not the same. I think most people would say a little more Christian-based, but it's really cool. And I've done both. So,
doesn't it take a long time to get to those top degrees, 33 degrees?
Well, 32.
Oh, 32. I'm sorry,
degrees.
32. Yeah.
The 33rd degree is an honorary Inspector General degree, and it's bestowed upon certain people as an honorary thing. And you can't aspire to that. I mean, you could want to be that. I think every Scottish Rite Mason does want to be a 33rd, but you can't even think about it. It just happens if it's going to happen. And, if that ever does happen, it'll be a long time in the future. So, but I am a 32nd and a York Rite Mason.
Wow, good for you.
That's exciting.
That is very exciting. And so I know we were talking. I was talking to your wife in one of your rituals of the Freemasonry that you found some interesting. I can't even speak today. Interesting
information.
I've been drinking.
You're so excited.
I've been drinking. No, I've been
it,
drinking a little bit. No, I was kidding. But some information that might lead to the Kensington Runestone.
Yes.
This is exciting.
And it was really an enlightening thing that, and I gotta say, I've spent 16 years studying the runestone, and just getting back to something you said, it doesn't take a long time to become, a 32nd degree Mason. In most cases, I would say the answer is yes, but there were a lot of things that sort of all came together for me to go through as quickly as I did. And one of the things is that in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, at our temple in Minneapolis, it's one of the few in the country. I think there's only 3 states that offer all 29 degrees. And remember, it builds off the first 3 degrees of becoming a Master Mason in what we call the Blue Lodge. So those are your first 3 degrees, and then there's 29 additional to 32 total. But I happen to live within 25 minutes of a temple that does all 29 degrees. So that's really important. The other thing is that in Minnesota, for example, there's only three temples that will offer those degrees. One in Duluth, one in Rochester, in southern Minnesota, and Minneapolis. So people that live in other parts of the state just don't have accessibility to get there to take the degree. Now, in the York Rite, it's different. They have lodges that will put on those degrees in greater Minnesota, probably about 15 different places in our state. So you have greater accessibility to the York Rite. And, that's just fact of the matter. So, and we do degrees twice a year. So I was able to go through literally 2 weeks after I became a Master Mason. And as we say, I took these degrees so fast it was like taking masonry to a fire hose. It came fast and furious. But anyway, getting back to the runes, when you think about the inscription, and I'll just tell you what it says so the audience can follow along, intelligently. It starts off on the face side where there are 9 lines of text, and it says 8 Goths and 22 Northmen on this acquisition business or taking up land far from Vinland, far to the west. Of course, Vinland is that place talked about in the Viking sagas, which would be on the east coast of North America.
Right.
Then it says, we had a camp near 2 shelters, 1 day's journey north from the stone. We were fishing one day. After we came home, found 10 men red with blood and death, and then 3 Latin letters, AVM. And then the last line, line 9, says, save from evil.
Save from evil.
Then you go to this side of the stone, which has 3 additional lines, and it says, there are 10 men by the sea with our ships, 14 days journey from this island, year 1362.
Wow.
So that's what it says.
Right.
And there's a lot there. And, if you stop and think about it, the usual interpretation people have is, these 10 men must have been killed by natives. They've been saying that for 100 years. Nowhere in the inscription does it say anything about Native Americans. Nothing. It doesn't say that they were killed. It says 10 men, red with blood and death. And for a long time I proposed, well, maybe they died of the plague.
Yeah.
I mean, the plague was ravaging Europe. The natives say that there was disease that was brought over by the white people prior to Chris. Maybe it was the plague. We don't know. And, for a long time, there were aspects of the inscription that just didn't make any sense to me. And it wasn't until I went through the York Rite degree, specifically what they call the cryptic degrees. There are 3 degrees in the middle, which are 8, 9, and 10. And the select master degree is the 2nd degree. It was in that degree that I made this discovery. And I can't tell you everything about the degree because I took an obligation not to. But what I can tell you is enough to just give you some context.
Okay.
And in these rituals, basically they are historical stories that teach moral lessons and other information through storytelling. And it's broken down into theatrical performance and lectures, typically given by what we call the White Hats or the 33rds. And I have to say they're really beautiful, they're insightful, and sometimes they are flat out amazing. But in this particular degree, the period of history we're dealing with is right at the end of the building of the first temple of Jerusalem. And it talks about the 3 grand masters and what they call the 9 arches. And in the degree, we learn about the Ark of the Covenant, what goes into it, what goes on it, and it's fascinating to say the least. And in the degree, we learn about how the 3 grand masters built the 9 arches, or built the 9th arch. It was down way below the Sanctum Sanctorum in the Holy of Holies inside the temple. And then in the lecture part, the brother who gave the lecture said, and the other 8 arches were built by 22 men from Gebel, which is a city in Phoenicia or Lebanon today. 8 arches and 22 men. And I went, wait a minute. Those are the first 2 numbers on the Kensington Runestone.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't hear another thing after that. I really didn't. I mean, I'm just like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Is this a coincidence or what? So as soon as it was over, I have a Masonic mentor, John Freeberg, who I have to say was one of the guys for all those years that I wasn't a Mason, who was completely open and was so helpful. I can't even tell you, but he was my mentor. And as soon as it was over, I ran over to John. I said, John, is there a ritual book to this degree? He said, yep. I said, give me that. And I started to read it. And it goes on. And it says, the entrance to get down to the secret vault was guarded by 2 men, Ashishar and Adoniram. And then I looked at the runestone inscription and I go, the next number is, we had a camp near 2 shelters. And then they introduced another character. His name is Zerubbabel. And he's the guy that mistakenly goes down and finds the treasures in the secret vault that he's introduced after Ashishar and Adoniram won. We had a camp near 2 shelters, 1 day's journey north from the stone. So I'm like, is this some type of a code? We've got 4 numbers in a row in this ritual, and they're the same 4 numbers in a row on the Kensington Runestone. So it goes on from there, and all I can tell you is that in Masonic ritual, you hear the ritual, you see the ritual. In some cases, you are part of the ritual, and what's happening is some of what you're learning is real information, and some of it is simply allegory and code. And the question is, what's real and what's not? And I can tell you that absolutely 100%, there are historical truths embedded within the ritual. The hard part is figuring out what that is, what's real.
Right.
So all of a sudden it dawned on me, the same thing is going on with the Kensington Runestone, because the carver of the inscription was a Cistercian monk who was educated, initiated into the ancient mysteries, which is really what we learn in Freemasonry. I mean, that's what we learn in the higher degrees. And so I started to look at the runestone in a different way. And what I realized is that things like 10 men red with blood and death, there are no 10 dead men. It's an allegory, because in the ritual, when we get to that part of the ritual, I can't tell you what happens, but I can tell you that it gets very violent and it's very bloody. And it coincides with the ritual and the numbers, and it just flows. It's in sequence, and it's amazing. Now, do you remember Star Wars?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. You know how when we saw the first 3 episodes, and then the next 3 episodes happened before the first 3 episodes? Yeah. It's like the prequel.
Right.
Well, the same thing happens in Masonry. Because these stories that are based on historical truths and, real history, they don't do it in sequence. It's kind of all jumbled up like Star Wars. So you have to be paying attention. You got to realize where you are, and it's confusing on purpose, I think, just to mess you up.
I was going to ask you if that was actually something that they meant to do.
Oh, I guarantee it wasn't by accident. But anyway, the point is that on the split side of the runestone, you actually go back to the Master Mason degree, which is the 3rd degree, which happens after the Select Master degree that I just talked about. And in the end, what the story is about is resurrection. Because when you are initiated as a Master Mason, you are basically resurrected as a new Mason, seeing the world in a completely different way, because you have been taught the keys and the symbols that are all around us that you just never noticed before because you didn't know what to look for. And so the whole resurrection story is about new life, but it's an allegory for being raised as a person who has been initiated and seeing the world in a new way. Does that make sense? That
makes total sense. And I remember we had a gentleman on. He was a Freemason. He wrote a book about the histories of the Knights Templar, which end up turning into the Freemasons. And people,
and that's absolutely 100% true, by the way.
Yeah,
he's right.
No, he was. It was amazing, and I can see for the people that have tuned in and didn't get to hear that episode, and you can agree or kind of correct me if I'm wrong, that he said the reason that the Freemasons and you guys are so open to not talking politics and religion, because the Catholics, the Pope turned against them is one of the reasons they changed their name from Knights of the Templar to Freemasons, and so I can see why they don't trust the religions, so they kind of just let you have a free will in a way, which religion doesn't let us.
That's 100% right, and really, I mean, coming from a scientific world and being a forensic geologist, and solving mysteries and problems is what I do for a living. That's all I've done for 31 years. That's all I've done. So I understand the process, and my job is to get to an answer.
Right.
And oftentimes I'm called to testify as an expert witness. So it's just my nature. And at the end of the day, the difference between religion and Freemasonry is quite simple. In organized religion, they require that you have to go through a human conduit to get to your creator. And I don't think I need to tell anybody what happens when you get humans involved.
We all
it
know.
goes in a ditch usually pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in Freemasonry, in Templarism, certainly the Native Americans and many other faiths, if you want to call them that, they do it differently. Instead of involving a creator, they teach you that you yourself can have a relationship with deity, whoever that deity is. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter what religion we're talking about. It's all talking about the same deity. That God, if you will, is the same thing in every single religion. They just define it differently, they describe it differently, but it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
100%.
So that's why we don't care. It's your journey, it's your experience, and you can have that relationship all by yourself. You don't need anyone to help you. Now, some people do, and that's okay too, but I guess I'll just leave it at what.
Isn't it funny that structured religion is supposed to have been founded on love and unconditional love and love thy neighbor and that sort of thing, and some aspects of it are so far from that. And what you're talking about with Freemasons is going to the core of that, not judging. And I like what you're talking about, tolerance. Some people don't like the word tolerance, but we all have to, quote, tolerate certain things, and it's our perspective in the way that we're tolerating it. And it sounds like they have the curb on that in a pretty profound way, don't you think?
Well, again, people are going to say, well, you're biased, Scott, because you're a Mason.
It doesn't.
But
feel
I
that
have
way.
to tell you, I was convinced by the evidence of 15 years of studying this organization and over a decade studying them pretty intensely. And the closer I looked, the more I liked what I saw. I can tell you, I haven't met a Mason I didn't like.
Wow.
And I now know that there is a vetting process that you have to go through. And quite frankly, if you're a jerk, you're not going to make it. You're not going to get in.
Yeah, because there's always that, quote, bad apple that's going to ruin the rest of the apples in the bunch, as it were. So it's good
That's
that you have
right.
to go through that process.
No, it won't happen. I won't happen. I can promise you that. You have to be legit to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not saying every Mason is perfect, because of course that's not true, but and of course Janet has embraced all this. She knows these guys, and they've welcomed her with open arms. When I go to my Scottish Rite degrees, she goes down to the library and she'll spend all night, and I got to drag her out of there. They just welcome, people that are truly looking for knowledge, trying to bring something of merit to other people. I mean, they can't go out of their way enough. It's been wonderful. What can I say? Look, if I had a bad experience, I'd tell you.
Oh, I'm sure you would.
And that's the way you're wired. That's how your whole makeup is. And that was going to be my next question. Is this temple a co-ed temple, or do they embrace both genders, et cetera, et cetera? So you already answered the question.
No. And if there was one thing that I was a little disappointed in, although I get it, is that it is a fraternity.
Okay.
And if you go back historically, it was primarily the men that were picking up the swords and fighting the battles. So there was a different level of camaraderie there, and I think that's part of what it's all about. But they have organizations called, like the Eastern Star for women.
Right.
They have Job's Daughters for the young women, and Demolay for the young men and boys. So they do embrace both sexes. But Freemasonry is definitely a fraternity, but the respect of women is absolutely there. And I think Janet would tell you that she's had nothing but a good experience. Now, between you and me, the rituals that I get to see and she doesn't, there's no reason why she wouldn't get just as much out of it. But, I'm not here to try to change Freemasonry.
Right.
I'm here to support what I think is a wonderful thing. But they support women in a really wonderful way. And I have no complaints.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take just about a minute break. We had to do our sponsor, but you're listening to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. We have Scott Wolter here with us. Scott is a forensic geologist, and he is, just amazing when it comes to the history of Freemasonry and just many of our ancient sites around America. Because he was the host of America Unearthed on History Channel, which I was a huge fan of. And I wish it would come back. But anyway, we're gonna take a quick break. So Scott, don't you go anywhere. Don't you guys go anywhere.
Right.
I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
And we'll be right back.
United States Pharmacopoeia, USP, sets the standard for most food supplements and are used in over 95% of all vitamin and mineral supplements in the world. The problem is that these products have never appeared in any living tissue. They're created in laboratories and are not recognizable to the body's metabolism. Grown by Nature products are different because they use renatured ingredients, proprietary blends of essential vitamins and minerals, with cofactors of proteins, lipids, and complex carbohydrates. Over 50 studies have been conducted on renatured nutrients, and over 20 have been published in peer-reviewed journals proclaiming their superiority. As a result, Grown by Nature vitamins and supplements are now recognized as simply the best available. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 and order your Grown by Nature products today. We are what we eat, and since we are of nature, we should eat foods in their natural form. Only Grown by Nature offers a full line of renatured nutrients. Call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829 because not all products are grown by nature, but they should be.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Truth Be Told, where we're experts here and we know everything there is about engineering. I'm Eddie Connor.
And I'm Tony Sweet.
And we have the world-renowned forensic geologist Scott Wolter with us. He's talking with us about the Kensington Runestone, the Knights Templar, Freemasonry. He is forever obsessed about finding the solution to expand the consciousness of humanity. We were talking about him during the break.
Keep up the good work.
And Tony has a very interesting question. I'm dying to know the answer to this.
Well, and I hope you don't mind me asking this, but in 1798, I believe that our first president of the United States, George Washington, who was a Freemason, I think he was one of the big ones, the Grandmaster. There we go. But he warned of the Illuminati. And, this has been over 200 years since that warning. And so I'm just trying to figure out if you know much about the Illuminati. I know you did a little, one of your episodes on the New World Order. But if he warned of that many years ago, how did the Freemasons keep the Illuminati out? And who are the Illuminati?
Yeah, and for people like me, I am clueless about that. So I'm dying to be educated here.
Well, I have to be honest with you guys. If the Freemasons are involved with the Illuminati, I didn't get the memo. I'm not part of this group. I don't. Believe me, I would probably talk cryptically about it and tell you that there's something there, but I can't tell you about it. But I can't even tell you that there's something there. At least not within the craft that I know. And I know a lot of the big guys. I can tell you that. And so the Illuminati, I think, and I don't want to portray myself as some kind of an expert because
Right.
I'm
We
not.
don't want you to do it either.
But you know, and I'll be honest with you, when we did the New World Order episode, we went to the Denver airport and the Georgia Guidestones. I really enjoyed talking to the old timer. Can't think of his name right now, but that was involved in financing the Georgia Guidestones.
Yes.
I mean, I really enjoyed him, and he was a wonderful guy. But I knew before we even went, he wasn't going to tell me anything. He said, "Look, I told the guy I would never say anything, and I respect that. But TV, I did it, but I knew he wouldn't tell me, and I was fine with that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and I knew that Stacy, the woman that I talked to at the Denver airport, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff below that airport that she's not going to tell me about.
Right.
I knew she wasn't going to tell me if it's even there. Now, I don't know if it's there, but I wouldn't be the least bit shocked. And quite frankly, if our government or whoever has some, doomsday backup plan that's ready to be put into action if something horrible happens, I got to be honest with you, I'm okay with that. Do they have some type of a plan in case there's nuclear war or whatever? Look, first off, there's nothing I'm going to do about it. And even if I did know, what difference would it make?
True.
I guess I'm a little ambivalent about it. It'd be nice to know, but they're not going to tell me.
Right.
and they're just not.
But you're Scott Wolter.
Yeah, well, we're happy for me, but look, at the end of the day, I'm a nice boy, but I'm not that important, and they're not going to roll over for me.
Right.
And so I'll be honest with you, I wasn't as interested in that topic as a lot of people go. I know there are people that meet on a regular basis and make a lot of decisions that affect our lives.
Yeah.
Now, to what extent it goes, I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors, but nothing with any real credibility to it. But I do think that there are people that dictate certain things that go on in the world, and I don't think there's anything that any of us can do about it, quite frankly.
And that's that's a fair answer and
an honest answer.
An honest answer.
I'm
Because
just being honest.
no, because there's a lot of people that would try to answer it and not even really know much about it. But we've heard a lot about what you've done. We've seen your TV show. But we have about 8 minutes left. So tell us what is coming up for Scott. What are you working on now that's going to perk?
Tease us.
Perk us.
Sure. Well, recently I formed a production company with a partner, a guy by the name of Hutton Pulitzer, who appeared on season 2. He was on several episodes of season 2 of the Oak Island show. Which will be starting its 4th season here this fall sometime. But anyway, Hutton is an interesting guy, and I have to be honest with you. When I first met him, I should say when I first saw him on the show, I wasn't overly impressed. I thought, well, this guy's kind of.
We won't tell him that, okay?
But I have to say, when I met him in person, I was very impressed. This is a guy who's done an awful lot in his life. He's very smart. He's very passionate. And if there's one thing that really turns his wheels, it's getting the truth out about history. That is something that he and I have in common.
Love it.
And regardless of whatever it takes, we will bring out the truth no matter who likes it or not.
Right.
And so I really respect him for that. And I can tell you that we are working on, right now, some really amazing projects. And just to get an idea, one of the projects we're working on is...
Oh, wait. Before you keep talking, You're cutting out
What's
just
that?
a little bit. You're cutting out a little bit, so I want to make sure we
I'm
hear.
sorry.
No, you sound good now. I just want to make sure because I was excited to hear what you had to say.
Yeah.
So okay, you go ahead.
Okay, well maybe the Illuminati is trying to keep you quiet.
I know.
They're
Stay
here.
away at least for 10 more minutes. All right, there you go. All right.
No, but let me just say that if everything bets out, it'll be the biggest story that changes history in a long, long time. Seriously, I am dead serious when I say this. In fact, one of the things that came out of this new research is a realization. You know how they say hidden in plain sight?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And how, when you figure something out that you've been working on, and all of a sudden you get the answer and you go, the hell was I thinking? It was right
Right.
there all the time.
Yeah.
How did I not see it, right? Well, one of the major discoveries that my wife Janet's co-author, Alan Butler, and my good friend discovered was something called the megalithic yard. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, did we?
The megalithic yard is a unit
interviewed
of
them.
measure. What's that?
I think didn't we interview them about that?
You might have, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a standard unit of measurement. It's been around forever, and it's based upon the planet Venus and a 366-degree circle,
Yep.
which of course corresponds to the days of the year.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's a standard unit of measurement. It's not based on the length of a king's forearm or a king's foot. It's a uniform thing throughout time because the planet Venus is so precise. And one of the discoveries Alan made that is absolutely amazing in my opinion is that our capital city of Washington, D.C. is based upon the megalithic yard.
Mhm.
They secretly laid the city out using that measurement.
That's right.
And
Wow.
Thomas Jefferson, in fact, wanted the megalithic yard to be the standard unit of measurement in our country when it was being founded, but Congress didn't approve it. So they did it anyway. But the standard unit of, and this is what Newgrange, Stonehenge in England is based upon. So let's go back to the ritual code and the 8 and 22 that tipped me off to what was really going on with the runestone. So do this, guys.
Okay.
Take the number 22 and divide by 8.
22
What do
divided
you
by
get?
8. Eddie has the pen.
Please. 8 into
Oh my God,
20.
math wizards! Come on, guys.
I know. Well, three
Yeah, there's
point.
2.6 or something.
2.75.
Yeah,
Okay.
2 point. Yeah. There we go.
Pretty damn close to the megalithic yard.
Oh. Wow.
I can tell you that there is a rumor that certain treasures were buried
Scott, don't tease me.
at a depth of 22 feet. 8, I can tell you this, 8 is the number of deity. It represents in Hebrew mysticism, which we learn in Freemasonry, is the number of deity, is the number 8. That's why the Templar Cross has 8 points. That's why the Newport Tower has 8 columns. That's why Yod-He, Vav-He, when you use the concept of gematria in numerology reduction, you get the number 8. 8 is symbolic of deity. That's why all churches have, and just about all churches have an octagonal steeple, and why the most sacred structures and important rooms on many people's homes are octagonal in shape.
Wow.
Because it's calling down the power of deity. So by burying something at 22 feet, you're burying it at 8 megalithic yards in depth.
Well, if you okay,
I don't think that's a coincidence. And by the way, I'll leave this for you and your audience.
okay,
Figure out how many inches 2.72 feet is, and then I'll tell you that the Kensington Runestone is 31 and a half inches long.
that's about Wow. Wow. See, this is why we love Scott.
I'm telling you.
when you're ready to dig up, Eddie and I will volunteer to bring the shovel. So,
Tony.
You know what? I always told them on the crew. I said, I've got all the requirements of a perfect worker: a strong back and a weak mind. So I'm in.
That would be me too. Well, Eddie can just drink his tea under the umbrella.
I'll be here. Tony will be out there delegating.
Well, Scott,
There you go.
This is, again, you just blew our mind again. So we want to thank you so much for being on Truth Be Told once again, and we hope to have you back in the near future, especially when you get this stuff on air and going. We have to bring you back. So,
well, thank you guys. I mean, seriously, I appreciate the support, and all I can tell you is television is a very fickle business.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, we had the number one show with rising ratings, and that wasn't enough to keep us on the air. So that will tell you how in flux television and delivering of television content is these days. It's changing so rapidly. But the one thing that is universal is people are thirsty and hungry for good content.
Yes. And
we have it. And so you'll see us again. Stay tuned. We'll let you know. But in the meantime, we'll just keep working hard and getting to the bottom of this. And we're going to have fun doing it too.
Well, thank you for doing that.
We appreciate it. Yeah, because people want truth, and you're one of those facilitators bringing it to the forefront.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott Wolter.
All right, guys.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, my friend. Give Janet a big hug for us.
I sure will. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Talk to you soon. Oh, my God.
You know what?
What?
Because so much of the entertainment industry now is also run by a handful of super mega wealthy people who have their agenda too, and sell everything from selling a Coca-Cola can to whatever else. It sounds like his show was just hitting too close to the truth, too close to the truth, unveiling a bunch of things that are actual fact.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we need to just go ahead and cancel this now.
I guarantee it, because many of the episodes that I've watched them all, that he hit roadblocks. Many of those where a lot of that stuff either could have been answered or it was right in front of him. It's just they couldn't. You can tell that he was that they won't let me say it, or they won't let me do it. So I like I said, that's why I respect him, because he continues to seek, and that's what we do on Truth Be Told.
That's right. I would have loved to have been there, a fly on the wall, whenever he found that information about the Kensington Runestone and then the Book of Rituals, and just watch him jumping up and down like a little happy kid in a candy store.
You can tell he has that boyish charm and that boyish energy that we all wish we had. Anyway, we're out of here. We want to thank you guys, but we want you to stick around for another episode of Truth Be Told right after this. We have a Brian Forrester, and we want to have you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and leave a comment, and listen to us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, all the other places. But until then, we'll talk to you in about 10 minutes. We'll see you on the other side. This is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm Tony. Sweet.
I'm Eddie. Good.
We'll be right back. Hey, thank you for listening to Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie right here on Universal Broadcasting Network. Make sure you go to our iTunes page. Just type in Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. Listen to us on iHeartRadio. Again, Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. And go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So please support our sponsors, and make sure you listen to us every Friday right here on Universal Broadcasting Network from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, have a good week.